Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors, episode 93.
Welcome to Life by Design, the podcast for chiropractors. Here's your host, Dr. Jamie Richards.
Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards, and I'm joined today by my friend and colleague, Dr. Horatio Jug. Today we talk about measuring the numbers that matter. There's lots of statistics and metrics that you can take on in your practice, but there's a handful of numbers that matter most. And so this conversation today really revolves around what statistics and metrics are the most important. What do they tell you? How will they change what it is that you're doing both today and how you're planning strategically in the future for growth? And growth doesn't just mean visit numbers. And I think hopefully that's the take home that you walk away with today is it's not always about seeing more people. There's other ways to scale your business. And I think other ways that are not just more profitable, but you're going to love them a lot more. So make sure you check out all the way to the end of the episode, any freebies you'll find at the end. And of course, as I've been saying over and over, if you're looking for an amazing associate position and beyond, please send me a message. And if you'd love to come on the show and go through one of your challenges, something you're trying to tackle, then go ahead, send me a message and we can take on a coaching call right here live on Life by Design for Chiropractors, the voice of reason in chiropractic. Horatio, welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors.
It's been a long time. I'm very happy to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back as always. And today we're talking about know your numbers. And this show can go in many which ways and directions, but I think the general principle here is, essentially that reality exists, to go back to a core Life by Design principle.
Isn't that always it? Isn't that always the take home message?
Yeah, everything starts there, right? But, you think back, so, go back to when you first got into practice or when I was first in practice. And, I think about the numbers that I paid attention to or didn't pay attention to. I mean, they were probably mostly the wrong numbers that I was looking at and not paying enough attention to the right numbers. And, just knowing now, knowing your numbers and your metrics and your business and your practice for that matter, I was thinking through in preparation, what's the one thing that it really gives you? And there's lots of thoughts that come into mind, peace of mind and security. And really what I feel like knowing your numbers on a really deep level gives you is it gives you freedom, right? The freedom to make choices. And, I was doing some of my own strategic planning here this week. It is the end of quarter two. So if you're listening and you're a follower of Life by Design for Chiropractors, hopefully you've had your strategic planning session or it's in the works. And if it's not in the works, then get your shit together and get your strategic planning session going for yourself and your business, because it's just ridiculous if you're not doing them. So that being said, I was doing mine. And, one of the things I wrote down on paper for me that really kind of prompted where we are going today is I just was thinking, what do I want? I think that's always a great place to start anyway is, what do I want for my life, for my practice, for my business, for all the areas of my life? And the one word that kept coming up for me over and over and over again was I want freedom. We've got a good sized practice here and we've recently reduced down to me, one doc. And I thought, man, what does this look like for me if I can't get an associate? By the way, if you're looking to join a great practice, side sales pitch, if you're looking to join a great practice and you want to come to Chatham-Kent, Blenheim, Ontario, it's a great, great place to live. If you love being outdoors, you love the lake and the water and all that kind of stuff, it's fantastic. If you want to come and be a part of it, then please actually contact me because we've got a legit position that, really, let's be serious. Unless you're going to go out and start your own practice, if you want everything done for you, ready to go and to be super profitable right from the hip hop and get going, then let me know. Now, you do have to be Canadian because I'm not super up for going through all the immigration again right now. But if you're pretty amazing, I might consider it. So that said, I wanted to, basically ask myself, what's freedom look like for me? And part of it was reducing my already busy practice down to 2 days a week. So, it's how do you take this practice and start seeing, in the hundreds of people a day, a couple days and keep your revenues really high. And why do I want to do that? And again, what I'm saying is I want freedom. And freedom to me was time, it was location, and it was action. Meaning basically my mantra is I want to do what I want, when I want, where I want. That's freedom to me. And freedom comes from knowing your numbers, right? That was a big part of the decision making that I went through was, all right, well, how much revenue do I need to create in order to create the profit that I want in my business that will help fuel my life? And if I didn't know those numbers and know them very, very well, then I wouldn't have been able to make the decision in a way that made me feel really good. 5 years ago, I would have just went for it. Oh, let's do this, and not really knowing what that's going to mean. And of course, when you're talking about financials specifically, you can put yourself in a lot of hot water if you don't know your numbers. And of course, we're going to get into today a lot of other ways that this comes into play and some of the numbers that are really, really important. But Christian, when you think of knowing your numbers and metrics, and what has that given to you over the past 5 years of really having a more detailed statistical analysis system?
So I think the most important thing, not so much for me, of course, I'll tell you what it means to me. It's very similar to you, but for the person listening, my life really changed when I started asking myself what I really wanted. I think that's the most important part. And I hope what people got from what you just mentioned. Chiropractic is a really interesting interesting profession in the sense that a lot of us, especially people who want to practice in models similar to the kind that we promote, we get our vision and our data and our information from speakers on stage and with what they went through and what their vision was and what they wanted their life to look like. And it doesn't take you a long time to understand that that's might not be compatible with what it is that you actually want. So, if you haven't already, just get clear on what it is that you want to create in your life. It really has to start with what you want your practice to look like, and then what you have to do to make your practice look the way that it wants to be. And of course, for me, it's freedom as well. I want to have, I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, how I want. I just want the freedom to be able to say, I feel like going away this weekend and not having it cause stress. I want to be able to start a new project. I want to wake up and be excited about what it is that I have to do that day, whatever that is.
Well, knowing the numbers for me took me out of the mindset of visit numbers.
Yes,
right. As the primary
me too.
determinant of success in practice and business, because early in practice and probably even up to 8 or 9 years in practice, like you said, it was really just, and I have no idea where this number comes from, but 300 visits a week. Right.
Right. I know where it came from. It probably came from, you heard it from somebody.
Well, I did. I just don't know who that was.
Right.
Right. And I don't know who started this idea of 300 visits a week. But that was the number, right? If I see 300 visits a week, I have a successful practice.
Successful. Right.
And so, there was a time where, our practice hit 300 visits and went way over 300 visits. And, from a profitability standpoint, it was great. I was, definitely enjoying the fact that it was more profitable than it had ever been before. But truthfully, looking back, I'm actually far more profitable now as a solo doc working 2 days by far than I was having, twice the number of visits, because I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know what my numbers were. I didn't know what good numbers were. All I knew was I was seeing way more than 300 visits a week. And so I should be successful. And so, number one, this should be obvious at this point. You need to have some type of statistical tracking system. And obviously we have the success surveillance system, and I'll put the link in the show notes. And again, that's a pretty straight up pitch. It's awesome. If you don't use the success surveillance system and use something else, as long as it gives you the data you need, then that's fantastic. Yep. But you need something in place, and it needs to be something where you're capturing data on a regular basis and you're inputting it. Now, one of the objections I get from docs is, well, I don't want to take the time to do that. Well, that's great. Don't take the time to do it. Just have your staff do it for you. That's why you hire staff. And again, knowing your numbers allows you to invest in a staff member. It allows you to grow a team. So I think, number one, reality exists. Number two, it gives you freedom. Number three, where it really comes into play is then you start the application process. So, how do we get that freedom? We talked just in 5 seconds ago that you need to have a strategic planning system. And so the strategic planning system is where we use a lot of those numbers and the data in order to create change and to pivot. So, I have annual goals for this year. But here we are at the end of quarter two, and already at the end of quarter two, I've gone from having a practice that was open 4 days a week and having myself and 2 associates and
shit happens.
Charlie's and all kinds of, and then we make a change, and here we are 6 months later, and I've got a new team in place. I'm down to 2 days a week. I'm more profitable. So you've got to be able to pivot. You've got to be able to make change. And that really, I think, to me, this is a whole other exciting conversation. That's what great business people do. It's what great entrepreneurs do, is they see the need to make a change before it's necessary, right? They're not making changes because they're in some kind of crisis. They're not making changes because, something dramatic just got dropped on their doorstep. They're making changes because they're viewing the future. They're purveying the land, and they're deciding, all right, where am I going to zig when somebody else is zagging? What's going to work for me? How am I going to grow? And, these numbers allow you to do that. And as I said, this is a recent change for us, but I decided, okay, I want to work less, but I want to maintain the same level of profit or more. How am I going to do that? And so we pulled the trigger right away on shifting the practices 2 days a week. We rescheduled or reformatted the scheduling when there were special appointments. I changed my fee structure right away. I said, well, you know what? Our supply and demand is still good, especially now down at 2 days a week. Our practice essentially becomes a waiting list. And so in that sense, the demand is higher, which means I can actually demand more per visit. I can demand more per case. And so, seeing still a high conversion on the front end in corrective care, well, I said, let's raise our prices. I mean, that's how you know when your prices are too high, basically, right? I mean, your prices are too high when you exceed what the market's willing to pay for your service. And so we haven't reached that point yet. So we're going to increase the revenue there. We're going to make a push towards more of a lateral expansion, right? We're not going to just gather new people. We're going to find ways to, increase sales in our core products. So, we have a big push on this quarter for increasing our sales in essentials. So each person, instead of just paying for their chiropractic checkups, they're also going to be paying more for their essentials and doing that more consistently. And so again, I don't just need more visits. Neither do you, by the way, and neither does anybody listening. There's other ways to grow and strengthen your business. And so again, what am I saying? I'm saying if I didn't know the numbers, then I wouldn't have a clear path from where we were to where we wanted to go. And having those numbers allows you to do that.
It also allows you to stay calm. Right. We have this, and oh my God, I'm still guilty of this. I have to remind myself, right? Like, so when you're looking at a business to invest in, and I just did this, I told you that we'll save that story for another day, but I made a decision to invest in a company just based on the potential future trend. So the last 5 years, this company was showing this. They had a ridiculous amount of cash in the business that they've maintained for 5 years. So the cash flow was just piling up. They made an investment. So, now there's less cash flow on the books. It looked like they lost money. So everyone sold the stock. As it turns out, because they're smart and they kept high cash, you could see the trend happening. And once the investment paid off, the stock tripled. Right. So what does this mean? This means that on the months where, you feel crappy, when you've only seen, much less new people, because we all have months like that where the number of new people coming into the practice is not what we expected it to be, or people are away on vacation, or collections was lower than it typically was, like one of those months where there's like 3.5 weeks and one of them a whole week is a holiday and you collect less money. You're not panicking now because you understand the trends, right? You have the numbers, that you're growing at this rate over the past 2 years, and this is going to continue, but things happen some months.
Absolutely. And I think, the lends itself well to this idea of scalability. It's, when you build a business and you kind of run it as either a solo doctor or a small operation, knowing your numbers allows you to say, okay, well, this justifies scaling my business, whether it means adding associates or adding staff, building your team. And if you don't know those numbers, then, you get stuck into a cycle where, you're, say, growing, but you're afraid to add a new team member. You're afraid to add that tech CA. And in the end, you're going to restrict your growth because, you need to be ahead of the curve on these things to allow that growth and scalability to continue. and whether it's adding new portions of your business, you need to know what those numbers are. So when it comes down to numbers, Cratio, we were talking in the pre-show, and I thought it was interesting how we both kind of had in our head, okay, what are the two statistics? What are the two metrics that you think are the most important? And we actually both picked the exact same ones.
Yeah, so we picked, and again, I think these are going to change just because we're at a phase now where we're looking to grow the practice. But I would argue that, you can use these for growth as well. I think they're both important, but definitely collections per visit and practice density. And we both define practice density because I've heard this defined another way. Practice density is the number of different people that you are seeing each month.
That's correct. Yeah. So the practice density is a great analysis as to whether you're stockpiling people. That's the term that we've been using at Life by Design for some time is, new people are great and accepting new cases is wonderful, but are they staying? Are we keeping them? Do we have a retention-based practice? And the best statistic to track that is your practice density. So if last year you saw 250 different people in a month, and this year in the same month you saw 350 people in the same month, even if you're still seeing the same number of visits, that means you have 100 new community members in your family that are coming to see you somewhere in that month, if not obviously more times in that month. And so you might say, well, how do we have more people in the practice, but our visits are the same? Well, as people change schedules, right? Frequencies change. People graduate through care. So it depends what your frequencies look like in your practice. But for me, we have a large number of people who are every 5 to 7 days, and then kind of a secondary group who's every 10 to 14 days. Those would make up about 85% of my practice. And then we've got a handful of people who are probably every 3 weeks and then every month. So we have a consistently increasing practice density, even though now as a solo doc in 2 days, we're generally at the ceiling for number of visits. So again, people drop, they go through their stages of care, they decrease their frequency from 3s and 2s into 1s or every 10 to 14. And so that creates space. And so I don't know exactly what the practice density peak is going to be for me, given the total volume of visits, but there is going to be one. But based on our statistics, we haven't hit that yet. So what does that mean? It means I keep marketing. We keep adding new cases, right? We keep generating new case reviews, and that's not going to stop. Now, it's probably not going to stop at the point where we, reach that ceiling, because somebody listening here is going to come on as our next associate anyway. And so we'll just start feeding our new cases to them. But if I didn't know the numbers, I might have a tendency to say, put more money into marketing when maybe marketing isn't where I need to be focused right now, and vice versa. Maybe somebody's not putting enough money into marketing because they're not growing at a fast enough rate. And if you don't know your numbers, specifically your practice density, and again, I think you're always going to look at new cases and, conversions. They're all important statistics. But if we bear it down to these two, practice density, and then of course, let me talk about costs, or not costs, but
collection.
Thank you. Collections per visit and how powerful this is. So I was doing some statistics this morning and just looking at, changes we're going to make in the practice. So I'll use some of my own actual legitimate numbers. And so I said, all right, in 2 days, I think we can run, a practice where we're at, probably 210 to 220 visits a week over those 2 days. And, if my per visit collection is at $41 per visit versus 45, the difference ratio in those two numbers in 1 year, just on changing your collection by $4, was over $50,000. And so your per visit collection is such a powerful lever in your practice. We're so driven by, I need to see more people. And a much bigger lever is by changing your fees, by increasing the value you're creating for people and charging them more money. It's a much faster lever, and it's a much more powerful lever. So if you think about it this way, right? Like, do the numbers. If you didn't change your collections and you stayed at 40, to use the example, how many more visits would it take me, Cratio, at 40 to get $50,000 more in a year? Right? $50,000 divided by $40 per visit is 1,250 visits extra per year, right? Divided by 12 months. I'd have to increase my monthly visits by 104. So basically I got to see 25 more visits a week.
Yeah.
Or I could just tomorrow change my fees, right? And for me, I can't see 25 more visits a week, but I can increase my fees.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is one of those things, right? Like people listening, like, I don't know, just try it. Just try to increase your fee by $1. And after you see that, as long as you're not weird about it, nobody's going to care that you're charging more money. It becomes a lot easier to be okay with increasing your fees.
Yeah. I mean, 2 years ago, when we opened this practice, just to give listeners a sense, 3 years ago, I guess I should say, we were above the market average in terms of our per visit set fee of 40. Around here, it was like 35, 36, 37. So we were 40. And, as of Monday, coming up Monday, which is about 3 years later, we're going to be at 55. And guess what? My conversions are the exact same, right? They haven't changed. They're identical. Not seeing any less new people. So now we have the exact same practice year by year, but the revenues continue to go up and up and up, and the profitability continues to go up and up and up and up. And again, just knowing these numbers provides such peace of mind for us. The freedom to be able to go to a 2-day-a-week practice, to know that when an associate comes on, there's going to be all kinds of new cases waiting and available. And think about this: if you're a new doc or a younger doc or a doc that comes on an associate, and again, I am trying to pitch somebody who's listening to the podcast. If you're not,
that's obvious, Jamie.
But let me just do the numbers for you. Could you imagine, Horatio, starting in a practice as an associate, knowing that right from day one, people were going to be showing up, fully expecting to pay the fees that we have set in our business? I mean, the amount of profitability that's available, I just think of the pain and anguish I went through starting practices. And I know it's the same for you. And I do think either buying an existing practice that is a well-run operation or becoming an associate in a practice that is organized and set up to support an associate, unless you are just on top of everything and know exactly how to run a practice and how to kind of, be successful, these other paths are probably a far better way to start for people.
I can't disagree, but I think you have to be the right person, right? You have to know what it is that you want. And going back right to the beginning of the episode, clarity is really important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I know we wanted to take this, because we've kind of followed through this path of knowing your numbers and talked about some specific ones and why it's important, to take this then beyond what's happening in the practice. And I know there's a conversation you wanted to start with people was then knowing this and numbers like this, they also start to go and transition into your marketing. Right. I think marketing actually, and I can be better at this myself, so I'll be the first person to put my hand up. Knowing my numbers in marketing, I'm not anywhere near as good as I am as knowing the numbers in my practice.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it applies to marketing. I was just chatting with, so Mike designed our website. And again, when it comes to something like websites, the first, and not that it's not an important question that you need to ask yourself, because somebody's going to take you for $25,000 if you don't have a budget around these things, right? But I mean, the first question that comes into most people's minds when they're developing a website is, well, what's this going to cost? Right? And the real question here is, well, what's it going to produce into your practice? Right? So I know there's a lot of templated websites out there. Mike designed ours. We're converting right now at 5%. Now, what do I mean by a conversion? A conversion is when somebody visits our website and they write their name and their email address into the form and they opt in to make a case review or a consultation, as it says on the website, right? So 5%. So think about that. So if 100 people visit my site, that means that 5 of them are going to visit, or five of them are going to put their name and email address in there, and they're going to come in. Sorry, they don't all come in because that's a different issue, but just in terms of conversion percentages, when I compare that to what is industry standard or what most other industries compare at, they say that if your website is converting at between 1 and 2%, you're hitting a home run. I'm 5 times higher than most industries average. I'm definitely way higher than what most chiropractic offices are converting at. So now, what does that allot me? Like, again, knowing your numbers, simple math. If I'm seeing 5 people on this and I know that a case in my practice is worth $3,500 for lifetime, right? That's a pretty simple calculation. Let's do, 2 times 3,500, that's $7,000. Right? Yeah. Like, so understanding this, and then what's traffic worth, right? So now another thing that I'm seeing in the profession is a lot of people have good websites that convert well, but they're not driving any traffic to it, right? So you have this beautiful palace sitting there and nobody's visiting. So now when it comes time to driving traffic through social media, through Google advertising, people complain, well, it's $5 a click. I'm like, okay, I get that, right? But you're going to pay $50 and one of those is going to convert into something that pays you $3,500.
Right.
Right. So what are you waiting for? Why aren't you spending $500? Like the cost of per click in this case is irrelevant because you understand the numbers and you can work it out. So it's not just, oh my God, what's this? And I get this because I used to think like this. It's not, oh my God, what is coming out of my bank account? It's what's coming out of my bank account versus I know that this is what's going to be coming into my bank account on average when I do this. Because of course, not every month is going to work out like that. Some months are going to be better. Some months are going to be worse. But if you take, tens of thousands of numbers now, that's the number that you're going to get.
Oh yeah. And I think marketing is an area where, as you said, the metrics and numbers become so important and we just don't pay any attention to them. And again, I'm putting my hand up saying I should probably pay more attention to this, but the principle is something that I've gotten better at understanding, knowing that, putting more ad spend into something is going to drive more traffic. It's going to drive more conversions. I just think of a recent ad that we ran for the gym. And I mean, my ad spend so far is $400 or $500, but I've got 917 clicks.
Right.
And 917 clicks, Cratio. And of that, for a 6-week challenge that we're doing, I've gotten over 40 people registered.
Right.
Right. So exactly. And so I'm going to keep spending more because the ad's still cranking and we're still getting people registering. Go ahead.
So this is the first time that you've run this, I'm assuming, right?
It is. Yes.
So you don't know how many of those 40 are going to convert for memberships, but I know you and what's one person worth to your gym in terms of profitability?
A minimum $2,000.
Okay. So you spend $500 ad spend, right? I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to get at least one from the 40. So you've already made $1,500.
Yeah. Well, and here's the cool part is because this whole other cool conversation, but because we structure things with a reasonable front end offer, we're not doing, a free challenge. People are going to pay for this. So basically my front end offer is going to pay for the marketing and then some. So, we're going to run 500, might end up with $1,000 ad spend. And then, we're going to register 20 people into the challenge at anywhere from $299 to $399. And so, what's 20 times an average case of $350? So you're looking at $7,000 on $1,000 ad spend. And that doesn't even count anybody who gets a membership.
Okay. But now let me play devil's advocate because I'm listening to this and I'm super excited. However, the first time I ran a Facebook ad and the first time I did Google AdWords, it was a disaster and it cost me lots of money. Mm-hmm. So, right. This is why, working with people who do this is a good way to shortcut your success.
Exactly.
However, on the flip side of this too, there is a learning curve to this, right?
Yeah,
like you have to learn how to create these offers that people want to accept. You have to learn, there's lots of learning to this. So this isn't just, start willy-nilly going to things online, but be willing to learn, be willing to do the stuff necessary, like in order to learn all this.
Right. And even if you became a master, it's still test and retest. And that's just one of the fundamental principles of marketing is you will constantly test, right? You're going to split test everything. You're going to see what's working, what's not working before you really start to scale these things. And that's for everybody. That's for the best of the best of the best. So you can imagine if you're at the bare bones bottom, right, how difficult this might be and how your success might not look like it's happening in the beginning, but over time it's going to. And in the end, the numbers are going to work out in your favor long term.
Well, I was there, right? How do you get so many from Facebook? I'm like, well, I marketed on Facebook for 4 years with nobody coming in.
Right.
Right. Like it took me 4 years and I don't know how much like ad spend was in that time, but it was probably a lot of money, but it doesn't matter. Like it was now that happened is irrelevant. Yeah. Now the success just keeps getting higher and higher.
Yeah. My ad spend on my Facebook account since we started the Life by Design Center it's over $20,000.
Yeah. Mine's about 16 or 17,000.
Right. So, these are, you just have to, again, we're knowing your numbers is really the episode today. And, whether it's in your practice, whether it's in your marketing on the front end, it's just knowing all the numbers and understanding how they work together and how they drive decisions, big decisions in your life and decisions that can make or break you in that sense. And I just think it's insanity to not know your numbers. Like, really, when you understand the depth of and the value that these give you for your life and your business and your practice, if you don't know your numbers inside and out, I'll leave you guys with this, and Chris, you can add any final thoughts. And guys, go to the show notes, Life by Design for chiropractors.com, and find today's episode, and we'll put anything we talked about today in there, and you can check it out and check out the success surveillance system, of course. And of course, if you're interested in working together with me at the Life by Design Center, then shoot me a message. I got to get an associate, dude. I got to get an associate. So, and that's a good thing if you're an associate, because it's a great place to be. And obviously that's the case. So, but if you look at, I love Shark Tank, right? And I watch
Yes.
Blows my mind, when Cuban or, Robert are asking these people about the numbers and they don't know. You're coming to me and you're asking, for $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, and you don't know your numbers. That just blows my mind. Like, what do you think? You think you're going to find somebody who's going to give you that kind of money for your business when you don't even understand the inner workings and the metrics of your own business?
I can add to that point, and I guess we can close on this. My favorite is when they're asking them about their business, and finally someone will always say, "Well, how much have you made so far?" And if the number's good, right? If they're like $1 million, everybody perks right up.
Right.
The checkbooks get right open. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you got a good idea. The fact that you do you know how hard it is to make $1 million? $1 million, man.
Exactly.
And that's when things get super interesting for them, right? They're like, okay, this person has hustled. They've created something. They know what's going on. Now we can invest.
Yeah. It's not just an idea. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Awesome. Great show. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. Another great topic, guys, and go to the show notes and check it out. And thank you as always for listening to Life by Design for Chiropractors, the voice of reason in chiropractic.